Thank you again for joining the session today. It's a pleasure to have you on board for
Yeah.
today's session. Can you just briefly explain a little bit more about yourself before we jump into the e-commerce trends? Mhm.
Okay. So I think I'll share a bit about myself, right? So as I mentioned, I'm fairly new in Anchanto, right? But I think I covered a bit of this earlier, where
Yes.
I've been working with e-commerce brands and e-commerce segments in Malaysia for more than a decade right now, right? So, in terms of Anchanto itself, Anchanto is a SaaS solution company that has been around for about 11 years now, 11, 12 years. So, essentially, we provide SaaS solution to a lot of MNC brands, local SMEs, managing or supporting them in a essence to grow their e-commerce presence. So, at a point, we were very focused on e-commerce, but we are also expanding into retail as well because we do see a trend where e-commerce business need to have equal opportunities in online and offline presence as well. So it is something that the company is moving towards right now.
Okay, cool. So you mentioned about the e-commerce itself now. Let me just go through the question now. Now we have a little bit more understanding in terms of
Mhm.
that. But what are the trends? What are the trends that are shaping the retail landscape,
Mhm.
especially in not just in Singapore, but particularly in Singapore? Sorry, not in Malaysia, but particularly in Singapore. So,
Okay. All right. So in terms of e-commerce trends, right? So Southeast Asia is a fast-growing market, right, for APAC region. So essentially, what does it mean is that it possesses a great opportunity for online presence. So this also attracts brands from foreign countries coming into these regions, expanding their presence in these regions. So it opens up a lot of opportunities in that such, right? So, having said that, what this will be allowing them to do is that we have noticed a couple of trends in the market because this is something that we work closely with the brands that we have in Malaysia, right? So, first thing that we have noticed is definitely the uptake in social commerce, right? Social commerce is not something new. I'm sure everyone knows about social commerce, essentially TikTok, and how they have grown in the recent times, right? So if you have noticed, the users that actually sell on TikTok, including brands, right, are getting into TikTok more and more, right? Even MNC brands are also getting into the trend. Is one is because of the conversions that they have. Essentially, they generate more sales. They have their reasons why they actually generate that size sale. Second is that the audience that are available, it's much more wider in social commerce, right? So we definitely see that social commerce trend is here to stay, and it's definitely going to increase in the future, right? Another trend that we are also looking at is live selling, right? So live selling is not tied just to social commerce. People are also selling in marketplaces as well. So Shopee, Lazadas, you can see live sellings are becoming more and more prominent, right? Similarly to social commerce, we are also seeing uptake in brands and their adoption towards live selling, right? Initial phases, live selling was more towards SMEs and local brands, and that's how they were doing it. But we are seeing more and more brands, key brands are also getting into live selling. It kind of embraces impulse buys in clients because essentially when you go live selling you have like a limited window, they give you like super good deals, it's like for a period of time, so it does increase a lot of conversion, right? So we do see intake in the live selling as well. The
right.
last trend that we are seeing is on click and collect, right, or more of an omni-channel approach, right? So
Yes.
for e-commerce, we are also noticing there is a increasing demand of options of how you want the item to be delivered. Customers just want a lot of options, right? So if you buy, some of them prefer to collect it. Or if you walk into a store and let's say you don't have the sizes or the variant that you want the option to be sent to you. So this opposes or opens up avenues for omnichannel presence in Malaysia. So these are definitely some of the key trends that we are looking into in the APAC region.
Yes. So I'm more interested in when you mention about the social media
Mm,
and then particularly you mentioned TikTok as well.
mm,
And when it comes to live selling, right? We
mm,
heard about ban from the Indonesian government when it comes to TikTok, right? So before I jump into the next question, where I would like to know more, because it's a very competitive market, and I would like to understand more in terms of the key strategies that brands should adopt, to differentiate themselves from one brand to another as well. Before we jump into that question, can you please touch a bit more in terms of the TikTok ban from the Indonesian government as well?
Okay, so we have seen or heard about it, but it is just while they have the ban that is being worked on, right? We do see that there's going to be policies that will be introduced to manage this better. Essentially, that's how it's going to go. While the ban is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, is already ongoing or it's under discussion. I'm not entirely sure about that. But what we would expect it to happen is that government will introduce policies to manage this better. And we also see with the increase that we have in the APAC regions in terms of presence, this also opens up opportunities for businesses as well. So I'm sure local governments will want to adapt this as well.
Correct. Okay. Back to the question. In such a very competitive market, right? How do brands effectively differentiate themselves and to build a stronger presence that resonate with the consumer?
Okay. So when it comes to stronger presence for brands, right? Essentially, it goes back to brand loyalty, right? So this is where a lot of brands are trying to strive, or they're trying different mechanisms to see how they can increase the brand loyalty. It's not only about getting new clients, but also generating repetitive clients, clients that are happy with your services, that want to buy your products again. So this is something that they are trying to adopt, right? So essentially, there's a lot of trends that are going up, but the key trends that are what we are seeing in this segment specifically, right? Brands are adopting towards digital shelf, right? Digital shelf is something that is kind of new in the market. So essentially, what it does is that it's an accumulation of data analytics, right? So what it gives the brand is that it gives you perspective in terms of where you're lacking or where you're doing good against your competitors, right? So this gives them a bit of a consumer behavior mechanism, right? Which allow them to improve their product offering, improve their product even at the essence, or even marketing. Everything will be realigned back with that information. Obviously, this information is readily available out there, right? In the internet, right? But just that accumulation of this data and where and how you accumulate it is the core function behind this, right? If you want to spend time in sitting and going and looking at all this, of course it can be done, but it requires a lot of effort, right? But there's a easier ways to do it now with how we are evolving, right? There are much way easier ways of managing this at this point in time.
Right. I think we have come a long way from just selling, it used to be, the idea of marketing and businesses is just to sell and try to tap into the market at large. And we have actually moved from there to become towards consumer loyalty, where we want the consumer to keep on coming again and again towards the product itself. And then that definitely come with a certain value, means that building your own value and how you can actually build a crucial competitive advantage towards other market as well. So in terms of that, how crucial it is in terms of the competitive analysis for e-commerce retailers. What are the best practices for conducting this analysis in order for you to create a strong brand image and at the same time building a consumer loyalty?
Okay. So again, so I would like to touch base again about digital shelf, right? So digital shelf is essentially a product that is available in Anchanto, obviously, right? But why am I talking about this is that there is not enough presence in the market itself, because a lot of people don't even know there is a software that allows you to do so, right? Of course, major brands are trying to write on this and try to get on top of how they can benefit from this, right? So what digital shelf does, right? To go into a bit more details, right? So what digital shelf does is that it provides you comparison in terms of pricing. first of all, right? So let's say you have some key segments. You might be selling in a certain industry, and you already have competitors that you either look up to, or some competitors that you feel that you're on par with, right? But what this gives you is that different competitors have different marketing strategies, right? During major campaigns, 11, 11, 12, 12, and those kind of period of time. But constantly having that feedback in terms of how the pricings is being managed is crucial for you to be ahead of competition. That is one, right? Second is we can talk about content management. When we buy online, we can't feel or see the item. So what you see as a content, the images that you have, is crucial in terms of selling, right? So it has to be appealing to the client. So how do you par against your competitors? Is it below par? Is it ahead? We can give you that kind of information as well. Digital shifts can give you that kind of information as well. Second is also on customer sentiment, right? Reviews, and what do the essentially people feel about your product? Are they happy with the delivery services? Are they happy with how the product is it overall? And also, how are you doing against competition? Mainly, taking the main takeaway would be is that to gather this information and to position the product where it is more appealing to the client. This is how you increase brand loyalty, because client need to be more impressed or more take away with your products, which will allow them to be more repetitive in that essence.
Correct. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're able to win my heart, I will just come back again and again to your product as
Exactly.
well, right? So,
Exactly.
okay, you mentioned a lot about the information, means the
Mhm.
use of information as well.
Mm.
There are a certain terms that they are using as well, which is product data, in
Mhm.
e-commerce. So,
Mhm.
I would like to understand more in terms of this. What is actually a product data, and
Mhm.
how does it impacts consumer trust and brand perception?
Okay. So in terms of product data, so there is datas are definitely available scattered around, because we live in an era where data is easily available, right?
Correct.
But having
Mhm.
that accurate data to help you to support the business is what we are trying to look at here, right? Consolidation of this data and how you use that data to further enhance your offering to the client is something that we will be pivotally looking at here, right? A lot of brands are adapting towards this, and we see an uptick in data analytics, right? They want to know how they're doing in terms of visitors to their brand.com. How are they converting? This kind of information essentially will tell you, is the clients happy with what they see? Is the clients converting or purchasing more from you? How is the trend moving towards last year towards here? This kind of data accumulation will allow you to strategize towards how you want to position your brands and how you want to move ahead in the upcoming year, right? If you see with this proper data analytics and you see a proper differentiator in terms of how your consumer behaves, you can design the way how you want to put your products upfront in the upcoming future. So essentially, data accuracy is what is core as importance here.
Okay, data accuracy.
Mhm.
That's a very strong terms as well.
Mhm.
Uh, okay, come on. I want to know more in terms of the challenges of maintaining control over distribution. But before I jump into that,
Mhm.
just now you mentioned about the use of data and finding accurate data as well. And
Mhm.
earlier on, you mentioned something about the omni-channel. So,
Mhm.
the omni-channel, that does it work in terms of partnership? Building a verticals of channel
Mhm.
in order for you to build a strong distribution network. And does it work that way, or does this omni-channel it's actually works in terms of other way as well?
So it's a very good question from your side, right?
Mhm.
So omni-channel is something we hear that term being thrown out very frequently, but it
Correct.
is
Mhm.
not as easy to achieve, right?
Correct.
Definitely partnership is key towards this, right? So when we talk about omni-channel, there's a lot of aspects for you to consider. Earlier, we talked about click and collect, where you buy an item, you have the options to collect it from the store near you. There's also a factor where you buy something and you need it delivered to you today. So when you have those kind of options, brand need to adapt and work with partners that allows them to manage this. As an example, last mile, right? So there are last mile companies that can manage next day deliveries, but they won't be able to manage same day deliveries. So that is why you have on demand deliveries. So how you connect with these last mile partners and provide a wholesome solution to your client, it is what is crucial here, that will allow you to be much more ahead of competition to an essence.
Correct. I mean, it's impressive because because you yourself coming from a different industry, I believe,
Yep.
and now you're jumping into the e-commerce industry and
Yep.
understanding all these terms and how it works as well. And you have a very clear objective on where you want to be,
Mhm.
to bring the brand ahead as well. But
Mhm.
there must be challenges, right, in
Mhm.
maintaining control over distribution network. And
Mhm.
yeah, how do you actually ensure a seamless customer experience for the
Mhm.
e-commerce businesses that you're having now?
So is this question more towards the last mile of how being items are being handled?
Sorry?
Is this questions towards how the last mile delivery options? Are you asking about that?
Uh, yeah, distribution network. Yes, correct. Distribution
Okay.
network. Mhm.
So in terms of distribution network, there is a lot of spectrums to look into, right? Like you said, having coming from the majority part of my career, I've been with DHL e-commerce, right? So I have a lot of exposure in terms of logistics, right? So brands essentially, when they look at distribution networks, it will also cater back to how they want to manage their internal businesses, right? Some brands have purely domestic market. Some brands have international deliveries as well, right? And some brands will adapt towards having warehouses and locations on how it is being managed separately, right? Regardless where it is going to, it is all need to be connected with a single solution, in a sense that if you want to manage everything manually, obviously it can be done, but it requires a lot of manual effort, a lot of resources. At the
Right.
same time, it also have room for a lot of potential errors, right? So because if you don't have a system to manage it, right? So in essence, if you have more of a system that allows you to support it in a way, so this actually enables your efficiency to be better and distribution to be better as well, right? So when we talk about distribution, we can talk about single brands having multiple warehouses, right? Multiple warehouses, we can talk about multiple warehouses being in Malaysia itself, or you can talk about multiple warehouses being in multiple regions or countries as well, right? How do you manage single inventory? Do you want to manage it from one warehouse, or do you want to distribute it to multiple warehouses? So there's a lot of ways we can manage this, but it essentially goes back to how the company wants to manage it, right? But how we can help them is that the system that we provide will essentially help them to manage this better.
Uh-huh. It is very interesting because you mentioned about system, and this system is actually because it is not handled manually. Means there is an automation towards it. Means
Definitely.
automation means it comes with like technology as well.
Uh-huh.
And without technology these days, I mean, I'm not sure how are we going to live in life
Yeah.
because
Yes.
we move a long way from there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
of course, now it comes to a few trending terms. And
Mm.
one of the most trending terms that when it comes to technology is the AI itself.
Mm.
And I'm sure you are very well aware about this. So
Mm.
um, even in your businesses as well, there must
Mm.
be a certain things that you would like to use the benefit of AI,
Mm.
and especially in terms of driving analytics, in transforming the e-commerce sector for the
Mm.
brand itself. And
Mm.
my question is, how you yourself as a brand use the AI, and in the future, in the next few years, what kind of development that you are seeing in Asia, especially towards us, especially as Southeast Asia.
Mm. Okay. So in terms of AI, right? So AI is a term, again, it is very commonly thrown out there, right?
Sorry. True.
Everywhere you go, people are talking about AI. Is not only on the e-commerce industry, is changing the overall how we function as well. Everyone,
Very
right?
true.
It cut across all industries, right? So this is something that is here to stay. AI is something that is here to stay, and we need to adapt towards it, right? So adapting towards AI, meaning to leverage on AI or artificial intelligence to see how we can further improve of how we function, right? So earlier you mentioned that how we looking at or how we planning to use AI to make things better for our clients, right? So AI capabilities is something that we want to be remain to use for the future, right? But it is something that people need to start adapting towards, right? There has been some pushback towards this as well, but it is something that we need to start learning to learn to live with, right?
True.
So in terms of e-commerce sectors in Asia, right? How are we going to look into AI? Is that brands will go into more towards one, data analytics, like I mentioned earlier. Second is that we will also be going into probably VR related items or augmented reality or virtual
Oh,
realities, right?
that's
So there
interesting.
are
Very
some
interesting.
brands that are already adapting this. Like for example, you can take a picture of yourself, and the augmented reality will make you see that how you will fit into that t-shirt or the clothing, right? Something like that, right? So we are seeing more and more in this, and this is just the start, right? We will see more of this happening in the future, where people will have that luxury to experience it at the comfort of their home, right? So this is something, as I believe that we are at the start of it, and we have not even fully adapted to the full potential of AI, right? And
Okay.
some things that we might think that is doesn't make sense or doesn't applicable now will be very much different in 1 or 2 years to come.
Yeah, I mean, when you mention about the images, the
Mhm.
brands that are using that, I mean, I find myself guilty, because I'm using that as well,
Okay,
So
okay.
it's like I said earlier, I mean, technology is something that has changed tremendously,
Mhm,
and as of now, we are looking at in terms of new innovation, which
mhm,
is coming up every now and then.
mhm,
It is not happening for at least 5 or 10 years changes.
mhm,
Every 1 year, you can see new technologies, new
mhm,
trends of technology is coming as well.
mhm,
So, okay, let's just put that aside. In terms of
mhm,
the general knowledge in terms of e-commerce, I would like
mhm.
to know more about a digital share. Okay.
Okay.
So, for the e-commerce owners now, of course, we as a business, we would like to come on board and to join in as well.
Mhm.
But can you please at least explain more how does it works in digital chef? And if let's say me myself,
Okay.
I'm considering of going towards
Digital
that
shop.
the digital chef,
Mhm.
what can I do to actually optimize my online visibility and sales as well?
Okay. So when it comes to digital chef, right, I shared a bit some of the context in our previous conversation as well. So we'll probably go into a bit more details, right? So we can look into 6 points of what we can look into on digital chef. First, I've also mentioned this before, strategic pricing, right? Strategic pricing and pricing comparison is crucial because if you want to stay ahead of the business, digital shelf allows you to give that information, right? How does it help you, right? Let's say we're talking about major campaigns, 11, 11, 12, 12, right? These are one of the biggest campaign periods of the year, right? So if you want to adapt and maximize your optimize your sales during that period of time, you need to be ahead of competition to understand that what is the market offering during that time. Because essentially, why would people go to buy in 11, 11, 12, 12? They want to make the best deal out of the whole period, right? So that is what driving the market. So if your pricing is not competitive at that point of time, it essentially will impact the business. So how digital shelf helps you is that we can fetch the data, right, in terms of pricing against the competitor to be updated as fast as one each hour. So, for example, if there's campaign periods happening each hour, you can know what is the data that is available there. So with
Is it
that, you can also,
is it
sorry,
automated or is it like
it's
manually?
automated.
It's
It's
automated. Means
automated.
you're not reaching out to me, but I can just get the information there and digital
Yes.
share. Okay.
Yes. So
Okay.
digital shelf will have access for you like a dashboard or a platform, right? So you will have preset requirements, of course, where you would have your own brands. You can have a few competitors that you want to look into, which will fetch the details and bring it back, and you can see everything in a single dashboard. So if you need to be more competitive on that essence, you can change the pricing accordingly. And with our system, it is something that you don't have to log into multiple platforms to change it, where if within one click of a button, it'll be simultaneously managed to all the platforms as well.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Okay, that's very interesting. I mean, so is this is a system you created, uh,
Mhm.
or this is kind of use of AI as well? I mean, like
Mhm.
is it based on AI or is it a system
The
that you
the
created?
fetching of data, it is AI to an extent where
Okay.
it captures that data through artificial intelligence. But our system that we developed, it is made to give you that kind of analytic details, right? But
Okay.
the fetching of the data will be managed by the system itself. And yes, everything is automated in that essence. So
Okay.
here we
Correct.
are talking about the first point, which is the strategic pricing alone, right? There are
Mm-hmm.
still few other key criteria that you can optimize from digital shelf itself, right? So next is probably we're looking at enhanced content, right? So, like I mentioned earlier, content is crucial when we are talking about your products online because that is what people see, right? So, it has to be attractive enough. So, you also want to see your content. We, of course, set a few criterias. How do we differentiate the contents, right? This is going back to picture quality, your backgrounds, or the clarity of the pictures, and those kind of stuff, right? Against your competitors, how are you faring against this? In terms of variance of the pictures, your competitors might be offering 15 different angles of the products, right? So we will set KPIs to ensure that are you up to par, is this something that you need to change so that you are
Ah,
as well. So this is what we're
okay.
talking about, enhanced content creation.
Okay, that's very interesting. So
Yep.
at least I know, and I know very well how my competitor is doing as well.
Yep.
So at least from that point, I can try to build up something that
Hmm.
maybe that this information can help in order for me to tap
Hmm.
into the audience and consumer as well,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Okay.
Yes, correct.
I think we have come to the last question, but before I
Yep.
jump into the last question about the
Yep.
prediction, when
Hmm.
about the future of e-commerce in the APAC region,
Hmm. Hmm.
you mentioned just now about the AR and VR. So how does AR make it something that you would like to build up upon to, right? So
Hmm.
how does AR and VR will come towards the digital chef? How
Okay.
can they come into the
So
picture? Mhm.
I don't have a direct idea of how this might work, but definitely I see a potential that this can be helped, right? So digital
Mhm.
shelf essentially is now gathering data, which allows you to optimize your listing and provide a better content to your clients. As we see an increase in usage of VR and augmented reality, because this
Mhm.
is something that is very fresh, and we have seen this in bigger MNC brands, but it's not
Correct.
something that is cut
Mhm.
across, that is available for all the brands, right? So the usage of
Okay.
it is not there yet. So in order for us to gather those kind of information, what I potentially see this working is that we are gathering information in terms of your content, because this is something that is clearly available and everyone is doing it, right? Pictures and those kind of stuff.
Yes.
When augmented reality or VR becomes a bit more common in the market, we can probably compare how those VR information is against your competitor is something that I foresee that might be happening in the future. In terms of, when you post for the VR, is it how accurate is taking the picture? Does it look distorted? Those kind of information we would be able to fetch in the future. This is something that I'm just seeing it happening in the future.
Okay, correct. But of course, I mean, I know, I should go towards the last question. I'm just like, I know, a little bit overwhelmed with this question now.
Okay.
The e-commerce industry itself is huge, and
Mhm.
I mean, there's a few big names out there, right? And how do you see digital chef competing against these big brands out there as well? I mean, is it something that will happen? You know, are you gonna be on par with this kind of brand, or
Okay.
you building a certain values toward the digital chef that is totally below upon competitive advantage that they might not have?
Okay. So digital shelf in an essence is a bit ahead of its time, right? There's not a lot of, I would say, a lot of knowledge about this in the market. A lot of people still don't understand how it can benefit them. So if we ask whether there are other providers on this, of course they are, but in a sense that in terms of APAC there is not a lot of usage towards this. So the reason why we are trying to bring this upfront is that we see a value on this, and we definitely see our existing clients benefiting from this, and we want this to be readily available to most of the people that are online, and brands that they're looking to enhance their online presence, right? So it is definitely something that is out there, but in terms of presence is something that we are still working on.
Understand. Okay, that's fair enough. I mean, I got a little bit of ideas now.
Mhm.
So now we come to the last question,
Mhm.
which is the prediction towards the
Mhm.
future of e-commerce, which I believe that the digital share itself has a very strong step ahead, you know, because
Yes.
this is something which is not each and every e-commerce platform is building upon to as well. But
Mhm.
of course, as we grow along, there must be a certain kind of new technology as well as a new trend which is happening that your brand would love to tap into as well. So my question would be your prediction. What prediction that you have for the future of e-commerce in the especially in the APAC region?
Mhm.
And should there be new e-commerce business trying to
Mhm.
establish themselves?
Mhm.
Um, what advice that you would like to give to them?
Okay. So in terms of how we predict e-commerce business is going to be, there has been mixed ideas in terms of how the e-commerce growth has been. But we have always been constantly seeing an uptake in e-commerce, right? It is there, it is here to stay, right? What it will further adapt is that the usage and utilization of AI, and the usage of how it can further improve this. So we will see a surge in the usage of AI, and how it will help the brands to enhance their e-commerce offering, right? At the same time, we also do see a equal distribution of online and offline presence, right? There was a period of time, when the whole world was going through pandemic. We see an uptake in e-commerce, which was no doubt because people didn't have a choice. Everyone had to go towards e-commerce, right? But
Yes.
coming out of it, we do see a trend of equal distribution for both, right? So the focus will be, while we also see e-commerce growing, there need to be an equal distribution between online and offline presence. So this is what we are seeing brands, especially major brands, are driving towards. Meaning to say, equal opportunities, and also push towards their brick and mortar businesses, as well as looking at how they can further enhance their e-commerce experience to their clients. Essentially, this is what we are seeing happening, right? At the same time, we also anticipate social commerce to something like TikTok to have continuous surge in terms of volumes. More and more people, more brands will have their offerings in this, which will allow further growth of social commerce. We might even have more social commerce brands out there. For now, the most prominent one is TikTok. In years to come, we might have more competition towards TikTok, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so we might even have other market or other social media that is tapping into this as well, because social commerce is essentially that, right? So we have other social medias as well that has not gone into this as good as TikTok. So we might even see, Instagram or something like that, that also adapting towards this. But this is, of course, is something that we don't know exactly, but we can foresee the potential of it happening in the future.
Okay, great. That's really great. I got a lot of information from you,
Mhm. Mhm.
Kamal. And to be honest, this is something that I mean, you mentioned about reading information on articles, Google. This is something that you cannot get those kind of
Yep.
information,
Yes.
especially when it comes to opinionated prediction
Mhm.
as well as the
Mhm.
outcome of the e-commerce itself.
Mhm.
So it is actually a pleasure to have you on board
Mhm.
for this session today. But before we go, is there anything that you would like to add on top of the information that you managed to share today?
Okay. So first of all, thank you for having me today. It was a great pleasure talking to you and be able to share my opinion towards this, right? It was a great experience for me. Second is that if I were to leave something as a takeaway, there is a saying by Albert Einstein, right, which is doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting a different result is, if I'm not mistaken, madness or craziness, right? So change
Truly.
is inevitable, right? We are always expecting change. We have seen great companies who has been the mammoth of their industry collapse because they were not adapting to change, right? So if I were to put one takeaway is that we have to change towards the trends that are happening, and we have to be very vigilant towards this. So having moving around in the e-commerce industry, this is something that I bring forward and how we're going to manage it in Malaysia moving forward. So this is something that I want to put away as a last point per se before we end the session.
Mhm. Again, thank you so much, Kamal. That's a very great piece of advice, I would say. There's a lot of things that we can give it a thought,
Mhm.
especially in terms of that. And should there be anyone who would like to jump into the e-commerce industry itself,
Mhm.
this is the best kind of 35 minutes of information that you can get
Yes.
from Mr. Kamal, actually.
Right.
So appreciate again, Kamal, for being here. Um, it's an honor to have you on board, and I wish you the best for your future endeavor as well.
Thank you so much for your time as well. And it was a pleasure being able to share my opinions as well.
Great.